Most founders become their own bottleneck when it comes to sales. Marcus is the perfect example. He closed a massive enterprise deal with SAP, and then his sales stalled because he got pulled into delivery, and the sales process lived entirely in his head. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact 5-step process that we use to break the Rainmaker's curse and rebuild his entire sales system in less than 21 days. We turned his head-based process into a playbook and a system that any sales rep can run. Step number 1, extract the sales process from the founder's head. Here's the problem. Marcus landed the SAP deal, but knew that every new deal still required Marcus.
Now I see so many opportunities coming my way, like through the podcast, through the process, getting leads in, being able to offer to big companies like SAP, Oracle, those types. And they keep working. So I closed my first big deal last week with SAP, right? So through the podcast, totally cold lead. So therefore it works. Apparently it works. And he also said, hey, there's a guy in my network, you two should at least talk. He could help map you, or he could help map out your sales process, right? Right now, I'm the bottleneck in our company. We are 9 people, and I'm the one doing the heavy lifting on the podcast and on the lead inflow. And I'm trying to get other people from the company hooked up because I cannot be the bottleneck in this. So I think this is one thing, to have some like of an SOP standard process, where then I can also start adding like a script for each call and so on. So it's easier for everyone. That's number one. 1A, 1B would be maybe in the future we might have a setter, we might have a closer, we might invest into people that help us do that work, because we are coaches and consultants. We are not salespeople, right? And the second part would be like seeing inefficiencies, because you have the eye, like when you see this process map, you say, hey, that's inefficient, that's not working. Me coming from lean, I see it in the product world, but I think I have a hard time seeing it in the sales process because I don't have the experience on how a good process would look like. I think these are two things that I can really take out of it.
There's no documented process, no script, no qualification criteria, and no clear next step after each sales call. He relied on his experience and his coaching style to sell, and this is a non-transferable skill. So even if he ever hired a sales rep, that rep couldn't replicate what he was already doing, which kept Marcus stuck in the weeds and capped his growth. In order to fix his sales process and create a repeatable system that he can ultimately offload to his sales rep, I had to understand his business first. So on our first call together, it was all about discovery. Essentially, I asked him a series of calculated questions to uncover all the facts of his business, his products and his services, and how he runs his current sales process. These are all the key components that I knew that I needed to understand about his business in order to properly audit his current sales system. The end goal here was to create a documented sales process that maps out every single step, SOPs, call scripts, follow-up cadences, everything that he would need to be able to delegate this to a future sales team member, whether that was a setter or a closer, so that they can help him scale the business. Through my discovery process with Marcus, he realized that his unscripted coaching style, which had helped him land a big client, would ultimately prevent him from building a sales team and scaling. He would continue to get stuck in the weeds and would not create a repeatable system to delegate to other sales reps. This is what we call the Rainmaker's curse. Now, after 15 years of sales experience myself building 8-figure sales teams, it's really easy for me to spot this, and I've developed a few key frameworks to help founders systemize their chaotic process and remove themselves from the sales. Once I identified the Rainmaker's curse in Marcus's business, I knew that I couldn't just give him advice. I had to give him a system. But how do you turn a genius, unscripted founder into a step-by-step manual without spending hundreds of hours writing it? That's exactly where we leveraged Hormozi's AI to turn his current winning unscripted sales calls into the perfect sales script. Step number 2, leverage Hormozi AI. Here's the problem. Marcus had already closed deals, so he had something that was working. but we didn't know exactly what in his process was working. And so I asked him to pull 3 transcripts of winning calls from each stage of his sales process. So 3 intro calls, 3 discovery calls, 3 closing calls, and 3 follow-up call transcripts. Marcus already kind of started implementing Alex Hormozi's closer framework. And so naturally, I felt obligated to use the Hormozi AI, which is only available to Hormozi's private community of million-plus business owners. This AI had been trained on Hormozi's sales frameworks and thousands of other consulting data from real 7, 8, and 9-figure acquisition.com portfolio companies. By using the AI to analyze the sales calls, I was easily able to identify the commonalities that he was doing well in each one of the calls so that we could carry those forward into the new script. We also could clearly identify some of the things that were missing from each stage of his sales process and then rebuild those into the new script. We were able to uncover 3 key elements of any high converting sales process that Marcus was not doing on his sales calls. Number 1, he told me exactly who his ideal client was, but he wasn't filtering or qualifying for that particular profile in his discovery call. Number 2, he wasn't doing any sort of lead scoring to understand exactly who these high quality prospects were and who he should really be focusing on, and then who he should not even bother with. Number 3, he was struggling to pull out key pain points that his prospect was having in order to position the next call as a solution to those pain points. The AI helped us analyze the raw data, told us exactly where the engine was smoking. Then I was able to put my thousands of hours of experience reviewing sales calls and building sales scripts that have generated over $54 million for my clients to really good use and identify and put everything together. But data without a blueprint is just noise. So now I had to sit Marcus down and show him the diagnostic, the truth of where he was bleeding opportunity, and introduce the new architecture that would finally allow him to step back from sales. Step number 3, review the diagnostic and align on the new structured sales system. Now that we had the truth, the facts, and the data, I had to deliver this to Marcus in a way that didn't hurt his ego, but instead highlighted what he was doing right that we could carry forward and the tremendous amount of opportunity that would open up for him if he fixed these simple leaks. In order for this to be successful, I had to get Marcus to buy into a few key elements, one of which was focusing on his one specific ICP and eliminating anyone who was not part of that group from his sales process. By creating a process that does that for him, he's not wasting time talking to the wrong people as he was before. So together we drilled down on his new ideal client profile, targeting medtech and life science firms between $200 million and $1 billion in revenue so that Marcus could focus his efforts on clients with the budget for high value projects. Next, we looked at process gaps. His current process leaked deals after the closing call due to unstructured follow-up and insufficient qualification of budget, authority, need, and timing. This is an acronym that we call BANT. In order to solve the qualification piece, we implemented BANT into his sales script. So we had to identify if they had the budget early on, who are the decision makers, who has the authority to make the decision, do they actually have a strong need for this service, and if they do, is this the right time? So the script itself asked questions to identify these components, what we call qualifiers, right? So if prospects didn't meet those, it pushed them out and eliminated them, disqualifying them, so that Marcus wouldn't have to invest his time with those who are not ready for his services. Next, I helped Marcus realize that he was wasting time following up with people and trying to get them back on the call after he had already made his offer. And so we implemented a structured follow-up process that I call BAMFAM for short, book a meeting from a meeting. And so we implemented BAMFAM into every single sales script at every single step of the way for each one of his sales calls. So no matter what he did, he was always booking the next call on the last call. This created his new sales framework, a structured 3-call system. So an intro call, or a fit check as he calls it, a discovery call, and a concept closing call. And we use Hormozi's closer framework in order to systematically qualify leads and drive them to a clear yes or a clear no. Lastly, we revamped his pitch into a very clear and simple to understand 4-pillar framework that was benefit driven. These simple process tweaks created a methodical sales system, but I blew Marcus away with one key tactical shift, which I call the ROI math close. Marcus had structured his pricing so that nobody was paying up front. They were only paying after each one of his workshops was completed. And so this drew out his cash flow over a long period of times. And oftentimes he wasn't even collecting the full amount on the contract.
So a lot of what you're mentioning in these transcripts is a lot of how we do it. But we want to then take the how and we want to tie it to what we do and the result that's expected. But let's try and anchor ROI. So if we can do this result in month 1, this result in month 2, this result in month 3, by month X, here's what we can expect. What is the ROI on that, on the overall result? And so instead of anchoring with your package price, we're anchoring with the overall ROI of the package. So typically what that means is this is going to be a higher number. And
Sure. So in this example, I think one thing I showed there was like more revenue because of the work. So let's say 20 million more revenue, and putting that versus, okay, like after 1 month you might get 500K, you'll put in 10K for us, right? So ROI is, I don't know, crazy number. And then I can even be conservative and say, okay, this would be the ideal case if I'm only taking 10% of that result, right? It's still a crazy ROI. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's a good idea.
And so by implementing an ROI math close into his sales pitch, we could position the full price of his packages and charge up front because the prospects clearly saw the value in the full program and the full system. Once Marcus saw the ROI math close and he felt the power of the 3-call framework, the Rainmaker's curse started to lift off his shoulders. But a strategy is just a dream until it's documented. I told him that we're not just changing how you talk, we're building the infrastructure so that you never have to be the primary closer again. Now it was time to take all of these shifts and bake them into the final structured sales system. Step number 4, finalize and map the new structured sales system. Most founders hire sales reps and they expect them to be able to figure it all out on their own. And this is the absolute worst thing to do. They have to be able to see and understand every single piece of the process and every single step of the script. They have to be able to understand it logically and know why it exists and how it all fits together before they can actually run it. So now that we've got buy-in to the changes, I had to actually go and build the structure. So I went away and did that. And on this last call with Marcus, I delivered to him his polished sales system, process map, and call scripts for each and every step in his sales process.
if you remember correctly, we also kind of mapped out your overall sales process and kind of, what it looks like from A to Z. So what I worked on since we last chatted was kind of re-scripting. So again, you're going to have to go over each of these with your words, your tone, kind of your process, but at least we have a structure that follows the closer framework for each fit check, discovery, and concept call.
Yep.
And then each one of these calls is mapped with like a process flow, and kind of like the core components of what's happening at each stage. And it's all mapped to the closer framework. And if you notice, each call kind of follows the same kind of sequence flow. So it's intro, discovery, transition, some sort of offer, and commitment phase. And so that's that.
By using one standardized framework across every single call in his process, it makes it super easy for any sales rep to understand the individual pieces of the script, and it never changes from call to call. It's the same core structure, and it makes it so much easier to memorize, to rehearse, and because of that, they are much more likely to close on the call because they're not worried about where they are in the script or in the process. It's the same thing every single time, and they actually have a true conversation with the prospect and they're able to connect. Marcus finally realized that this was the key element that he needed in order to remove himself from sales and bring somebody in that could do this for him so that he could buy back his time to focus on service delivery and scaling the business. With the playbook finally in Marcus's hands, the chaos was gone and replaced with a clear, logical map. But a map doesn't mean that you're at the destination. Before we went out and invested money in new hires, we had to do the one thing that most founders are scared to do. We had to stress test the machine in the real world, and we had to validate the system to ensure that it was sales rep ready for the handoff. This takes us to the last step of the process. Step number 5, validate the new sales system and prepare to buy back founder time. We had solved one of the biggest mistakes that businesses make when building sales teams, which is simply just winging it.
So that's overall sales process.
Woohoo! That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Because I mean, I can tell you why. Every disco feels like so much focus for me, and I really need to like concentrate and doing the work. Every like concept call feels like, hey, I really need to focus on what's going on. And the script takes that away, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, next step. What's the next question? Okay, got an answer. Good enough. Yeah, next question, right? So this takes the mental brain power away so that I don't need to focus on the mechanics of it, right? So yeah, super cool. Super cool. The way you presented, every call has also a sales and like a iteration process, right? But you're selling the next state.
Yep.
And I think that's a more standardized way, because then every call follows the same process. It's like even the 50 minutes call has a reframing and like strengthening in the end. It's like always the same, right? Yeah, cool.
Cool. All right.
Super happy. I'm super happy. This is super cool, right? I'm glad we went through this process.
All right. Cool. That makes me happy.
Now we have a system and we just have to validate that system. And what that means is doing the hard thing, which is following the system, following the scripts, following the process to the T, the exact same way that you would expect a sales rep that you just hired to do it. And you have to do it consistently. My rule of thumb is closing 15 to 25 clients using this exact process is what we'd call a validated system. The most important part of this last step is recording every single call and documenting every part of the process, because it is the key to onboarding and successfully ramping a sales rep to do it for you. This becomes your training library, which is going to make your life so much easier when it comes time to hire sales reps. Throughout this process, Marcus went from rainmaker founder stuck in the weeds to the architect of a system that's ready to handle enterprise scale without him. If you want to see exactly how these 3 calls played out and the nuanced steps of the entire process, click this next video right here for the raw deep dives. Cheers.